let's go over to the rigids. So like I said, we need to add in the new scars that are basically coming online at the same time that these dynamic ones are being created. So let's go to that area, ground scar sim. Let's bring that in over here. And let's just find one of these. So let's say on frame 24, well, let's say, okay, frame 26, we have one show up. So which ones are those going to be? Well, that's going to be these, the just hit ones. So we have this just hit thing here. So we'll just say just hit is 1. That's a point attribute, delete non-selected. So now we have the ones that were just made, like so. So we're going to merge that in. Well, two things. Right now it's a packed disk primitive. We need to unpack this one level to get this back to the packed fragments that we actually want to simulate. So like I was starting to say, we're going to want to merge that in to this source here. That way the new explosive ones, the dynamic ones, will get added at the same time as the non-explosive ones. So it looks like that. But we'll want to change these settings. So these are the sim settings for the active ones. Let's change the sim settings for the inactive ones, mostly by changing active to 0. Let's name them. Let's call it scar something instead. And we don't want these collisions to be ignored. I don't want the new active pieces to like be ignoring them and then all of a sudden come online while they're inside of them. A better idea is let's make sure that these new rigids don't ever spawn inside of this thing, because that would be a problem. We can see like this piece right here and this piece and so on, they are intersecting it. So what we can do instead is right after we killed a bunch of these points by a threshold, let's use array to move them out. So I'm going to say ray. And remember, when we were designing our explosion before, we stored these normals to denote the direction that they'd be flying out in. So we already have that. So point it to the unpack here, and you can see we move some of these things up. Or maybe it's easier to see here. There. You can see they're moving out. Now, moving out is fine. We should probably also make it move out and then some. So the lift will basically say, for any of the pieces that actually do hit something, move them even a little bit more. So see how I can continue moving them outwards, but only the ones that hit. So we don't want to move that much. Let's just give it like just a little bit. Let's also point intersection, let's do it the farthest surface to make sure that it's not just hitting the first thing we see. So let's start to see what does that actually end up looking like. So here's the thing, and if I turn this on, you can see it moves it out. And I'm going to put this template on. So again, you can see it's moving them outside, especially you can see it here. It's moving it outside of this stuff. And in order to make this a little bit more accurate, like it's already fairly accurate, but let's use a tetrahedralize to simulate the convex hulls that the bullet sim is going to make anyway. I mean, this is already probably pretty good, but if I say, well, I'll have to unpack this again. Let's say if I unpack this, I'm going to hook it up to the, well, first let's actually just go here and say connected components, mode, convex hull. So we're going to say for every connected chunk of this, make a convex hull out of it. It's kind of hard to see. If I go to like flat shaded, you can see it there. So these are like the standard kind of bullet looking convex hulls that we're used to. So that's, seeing as that's what we would actually be doing the collision anyway, it just makes more sense to ray against that instead. Just to be more accurate. Okay. So make sure everything's working nice. We come down here. disable the ray or enable the ray. Wonderful. Great. So that's ready to go. So it's merged into the source here. And like I said, the main thing here is that it's active. So yeah, so we didn't need to like change anything about the collision ignore. It would be more difficult on this side of things when we're talking about generating all these pieces to have them move out from each other on the first frame. But the other way, it was a little easier. Good enough. So let's go back to the first frame and let's just make sure that that looks right. And then we'll cache that too. But let's do a real quick look-see to make sure it's working right. And it seems like it's probably fine. I'm going to just stop the sim here and just look. So we'll just move in here. I really hate that with the camera plane. But yeah, you can see that they're resting on top of it. Some of the pieces just rest there. Some of them get hit. So yeah, it's working fine. As well it should. Great, so let's cache that out as a new sim. This is why we did this before, where we have the active equals 1 to ensure that we are not getting that stuff that we added in. Even though this is what came in was, you know, these ground things, the output here is only keeping this. Otherwise, we would be getting those two. So I'll increase this and let's save that. And move on.